Longtime fans of this channel might know that the first episode of Movie Tales we ever did was 2016's Shin Godzilla. We are now in a new era where more Godzilla content is coming out every day. The weekly TV show is on the horizon. A new Toho Godzilla movie is coming out in a couple of weeks. So I wanted to go back to the original. We're talking 1954's Godzilla, the original masterpiece that is one of my favorite movies ever made. A movie that is very influential to me and has become one of my favorite genres. This is just perfect cinema, in my opinion. This exact beat. I love every aspect of this. It's super serious, it's super campy at the same time, and it's fully aware of what it's doing. You don't make them like this in America, and it's like the problem I've always had with a lot of the American versions of a Godzilla concept is we try too hard to make this about like the military might and the muscle of the complex that can take down this creature. When it should be like, we are on disaster control. We cannot stop this thing. We just have to find a way to contain it and keep our people safe, as opposed to being the aggressors. We're on the defense until it's necessary. I love that. It's something that the Japanese get so well with this concept, is just you have to understand it before you figure out what to do with it. We're not just going to blow it up right away. There's more at stake here than what you could imagine. And this movie is so good at doing the escalation to that. I absolutely adore it so much because it starts off so small scale. A couple of boats are just attacked and they're sunk, and people are missing. It starts off with 2 ships, then we send like a relief ship to go find some people. That sinks too. And then boom, okay, the local government, we have people missing. There are families that are worried. Reporters are coming to get the information about this too. This is one of my favorite types of thing with like reporters in movies, where they're just disgusting creatures, just parasitic things, just coming to get every piece of the story they can. It's amazing. And that's the opening of this movie. We have this soldier who's like dating this young woman. Her name is Amiko, and he's Ogata, and he's like, okay, I have to go do this. Let's figure out what's going on. And then we find out that her father is actually a professor who's like a zoologist. So maybe if they find some interesting stuff there, like it's a beast or something in the ocean that's attacking them, he'll be able to help us out. So that's what we're going to do. We have a village that's attacked. There's this young boy there who loses his family because he runs out of the house when they're attacked. And suddenly there is this big creature that is attacking them, and nobody knows what it is, but it's almost like out of an era that no one could imagine. The Jurassic era, which, according to this movie, happened 2 million years ago. I love that. It's something I love to see, how the evolutionary scale, or how like just the evolution of the concept of what we know about the past evolves, where, oh, the Jurassic era happened 2 million years ago, when now we look at like some data and it's like decades upon decades of millions of years since like that entire period existed. It's so cool to see that. But we just say, no, the Jurassic era was 2 million years ago. And it's so freaking sweet. And then we get a whole crew. We have soldiers and scientists and professors coming to this village. They got like their radiation stuff on. They're just like, man, this is radioactive. This is kind of weird. And this whole village is like, what's going on? There are so many extras in this movie, just people walking about, which I love that feeling, because you kind of lose that when everything is the sensation online now in today's stuff. You can just go on your phone, go on your laptop or whatever, and see everything happening. But if like some strange guys just showed up to your village after there was like an earthquake, you'd be like, is something weird happening? Like, what's going on? And this is kind of where we first really get into Professor Yamane, and he is such a cool professor. I love just an insane professor and stuff like this, like an old guy who's like, this is just the tale of Godzilla, because we have a man in the village who's like, this was Godzilla. And he's like, you know what? You might be Godzilla, because if you look at these footprints, they're very radioactive, and they are kind of Godzilla adjacent. And I just love, one of my favorite things, they go to this big footprint. It's radioactive. The professor just puts his hand down and picks up like a trilobite. Like, we just said it's radioactive and you don't touch it, and this stupid professor, this cool guy I should say, because he's freaking sick, just picks up the trilobite and he's like, this is from the Jurassic era. we're dealing with a monster. And then what's happening? Godzilla emerges on the other side of the island, as that is where we first see the Godzilla character. And I'll say it holds up so well to me. I'm sorry. I can like differentiate between like practical effects and visual effects like that. And, I watch so much old stuff that I know like it's cheesy to look at. But I still think the cheese works really well. And this suit is just super impressive. It's bulky. It's weird. The face is like maybe the biggest issue for some people, but I love the goofy eyeballs, the kind of pointy ears on it. The classic Godzilla stuff looks great. And it just terrorizes the other side of this village for a minute. And then we cut to one of my favorite things in a movie. I love this. And we talked about them a couple weeks ago. It's the same thing where the scientist is like, hey, guess what? This is because of nuclear testing. So we go to a boardroom and Yamani's like, okay, so this thing is probably like the Godzilla of myth where sometimes we like sacrifice like a girl and Godzilla would eat her, I guess. But if you look closely, you can see that this is from 2 million years ago in the Jurassic era, and it's probably feeding on nuclear radiation from the H-bomb, which is great. Yes, I love that because, of course, Japan would hate all of that. Because there's even scenes in this movie where we just casually cut to people living their daily lives. Just living their daily lives, right? They're reading a newspaper like, can you believe these attacks? They're insane. And someone's like, yeah, I just had to leave Nagasaki. I barely got out of there and now I have to worry about this. I'm like, I can't imagine an American movie having that moment, you know? Where it's like, we are like, this is 54. We're like a decade removed from the events of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, right? And this guy's like, I just survived an attack from America and now you're telling me their attacks made a lizard that's going to eat our planet. Like, that's really terrifying. I love that so much. And Yamani's like, yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. I don't know how we defeat it because it feeds on radiation. How do you fight that? I don't know. We'll have to find some sort of way to deal with that, but God forbid I know what it is. And then the rest of the movie, after Yamani makes his case, he's just kind of like a broken guy who's like, I love this creature. I think we should study it as opposed to trying to destroy it. Every time we try to destroy it, it destroys more of our life than us. We can't just fire it with guns and stuff. It's an unstoppable force. We can't beat it. Killing it's wrong too. You know? Like, oh, yes, I love that. And then the story kind of switches gears a little bit. It starts to become more of a love story that focuses on a sort of semi-love triangle. Because Ugata and Amiko are not the only two people here that have an invested interest in stuff with Yamani. There's actually this other guy named Dr. Shirazawa who was originally engaged to Amiko or has some connection to Amiko because there's reporters saying that Shirazawa is going to be, Yamani's son-in-law. So he's like a mad scientist, but because of the war that happened very recently, he lost an eye, and he's got some really dark tensions building up that we don't really understand. But a reporter comes to find Amiko because there's like a reporter angle to all this too, and he's like, can I speak to like Shirazawa? Like, I feel like I need to talk to him because he might have some clues to going on here. And Miko's like, sure, I have to talk to him too, because I'm no longer with Shirazawa. I am now seeing Ogata, so I have to go tell him that I'm more in love with Ogata than him. So they head to go talk to Shirazawa, and his introduction is fantastic. He looks like a lunatic. He's got an eye patch. He's always wearing like a lab coat with the sleeves rolled up, and he just doesn't seem like a normal guy. I love that so much. I love that so much. This freaking dude, I respect him. He's so cool. And he's not going to tell the reporter anything because they're hounding for a story that could be. But because Amiko is like one of his early loves, I'll show her what I'm working on. Takes her to a secret lab, shows her some fish in a tank, and she freaks out at what it is. We don't see what it is, but she freaks out at some fish in a tank. What could that be? Who knows? We have a couple more moments throughout the movie where Godzilla attacks like some power plants and stuff, charging up his power. It's a thinly veiled metaphor for nuclear testing, and that's the point. Some people might not get that. Again, it's the thing that the American ones lose, kind of, where it's like, especially when you take it out of that time period, you can't really have it be about nuclear testing. A story has to evolve into something else. but it's more prescient when it's like a man-made thing. Like we awoken this beast from its slumber and it feeds on our destruction. That's terrifying. That's kind of cool. And it's just beautiful where the stuff I love, and Shin Godzilla does it so well too. It's just the government acting in real time to fix a crisis. Can you imagine a government actually getting their shit together and solving a crisis before it becomes too late? Like, that's why this is fiction, because they actually have a plan in place. We have to evacuate this city where it's been sighted. We have to put a wall in this radius. We'll trap it there, and maybe we can find a way to destroy it in that capacity. So then we get probably the most impactful scene on my young mind. The first time I saw this sequence, when Godzilla is first terrorizing a full-on city. What city is it? Osaka? I can't remember what city it is. Or it's the suit stomping miniatures. It changed my life. I love this stuff so much. I adore this type of story, this feeling of just, here is a guy in a huge suit getting to break bridges, stomp on cars, and destroy small cities. It looks so good. I don't care what anybody says. I think this stuff still looks really good and is so impressive and fun. I adore it so much. And just the random shots of people throughout the city looking up at the Bigfoot or the tail, watching this monster destroy it. And when we charge it up with its nuclear breath, it looks good. It's so cool. And then it's here's some Spitfire coming out, and then the buildings are on fire, and it destroys this city. It destroys the city, and it looks great. Is this my favorite design for Godzilla? Oof. That's something I'd have to think about. It's not my least favorite. It looks great, and it's so much fun, and it stomps around so great. Just the close-up shots of the tail are fantastic. And one of my favorite sequences in all of film is when you have a reporter who's doing a live broadcast or getting something out there, and yes, the thing is coming towards me. I cannot escape. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my final broadcast, and then they die. I love that kind of stuff because it's so terrifying. Just well, the job comes first. I have to get this out there. It needs to be said and it needs to be filmed. And that's so cool. I love that stuff. And then they kind of try to lure it back into the waters, and they start dropping a bunch of bombs on it after it destroys a city, and what's left of the town is just standing there watching it head back into the water. And here's a bunch of planes coming by throwing missiles at it. Most of them miss, by the way, which I get. It's kind of hard to do that. But the practical shots where it's a small plane, a miniature plane coming in, I love that. This movie does a really good job of balancing this is the real car, here's the miniature getting flipped over. I think it balances it well. Maybe somebody else won't think that. I think it does, because that's really impressive. Really cool. Oh, it's such a good movie. I don't know. And this is after the destruction of this city, this is where Amiko's okay, I have to talk to Serizawa because he has something that might be able to stop Godzilla from attacking. And that's when we reveal the weapon. The weapon that Serizawa has been building is an oxygen... Would they say it's an oxygen destroyer? Something like that? The oxygen destroyer, diffuser. It's a device that you drop it in water, it takes away all the oxygen, and it suffocates the fish because they breathe in... They don't breathe oxygen, right? So it distributes the oxygen and kills them? Hard to say. It takes out the oxygen, the fish die, Amiko freaks out, and she's like this to Agata. I didn't tell him that we're in love, but now I have to break my promise to him by not telling anybody this. We might have to use this thing. And in one of my... this is probably my favorite part of the whole movie. Is these three characters, Ugata, Amiko, and Serizawa. They're in his laboratory, and he's like, she told you, fine. Then you know why this can't happen. It's the weird Oppenheimer parallel, where if we build this, we can't unring that bell. If I create this, they're going to coerce me into using it again in different attacks, and I will not be responsible for the destruction of sentient life just because we can't kill this thing. And it's just these people there is so much more at stake right now than your pettiness to helping your country. They're gonna we're gonna lose everything because of this Godzilla. You have a device that could potentially stop it, and he's eventually coerced into helping them, but he destroys all of his plans. And right there, you're like, this guy's going all in on this. He's going to use his device. No one else will know how to make it, and he's not coming back from this. I love that. It's that type of like mad plea I love in a movie like this, where Serizawa is just, you cannot coerce me. I will not let you have my plans. This is greater than even the threat of Godzilla. I am not going to ruin the sanctity of humanity with my oxygen device just because you want me to. I will kill myself before that happens. And that's what happens in this movie. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen this movie, which I don't know why you haven't, because it's a perfect film. Then we have to go use the oxygen destroyer. What does that mean? We're going to put on those old 50s diving suits, and Ugata and Serizawa are going to head to the bottom of the ocean, where Godzilla is just sleeping. Godzilla is just sleeping here, and they're going to wake him up, use the oxygen destroyer to catch him in a trap. But of course, we have to get close enough to Godzilla to do that. So Serizawa makes the ultimate sacrifice, and he tells Ugata, I wish you both happiness in your days. Like, he knows he's not coming back from this. He's like, I know she loves you. I wish you both happiness. Insane. And he sets off the device, which is just like an orb inside like this thing that releases a bunch of bubbles. We actually film under the water, so it looks so good. It's just straight up some Creature from the Black Lagoon stuff, which is some of my favorite stuff. There are so many parallels between this and Creature that I adore immensely. Just a big suit underwater. How is somebody breathing in that? Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. It's trapped in bubbles. I really love that when the oxygen destroyer works, Godzilla's lifeless body floats up to like get grasping for its like last breath, and then dies and it sinks back to the bottom. Amazing. And Serizawa, the mad scientist with the eye patch, saved the day. And that is when Yamane is like, I wish we didn't have to kill this thing. But one thing is for sure, if we continue to do nuclear testing, this is going to continue to happen. And who knows what else will awaken, what other horrors lie beneath the surface that we don't know about. Oh, I love it. I love this so much. And I know, if you're not like a big Godzilla person, you don't like just like the human stuff, but I like the human stuff when it's done perfectly. When it's just, we're starting with this local government has to deal with these missing boats in their shores, right? What happened? We don't know. Then it just escalates to, now reporters are getting out, now the general public is aware of this. It escalates to, we have to go to a global scale for the Japanese government to figure out what's going to happen here. We have to make up safeguards and perimeters. All the while, it's about this mad scientist realizing he has created a weapon that could destroy the world. In order to stop that from happening, he has to kill himself and the creature that will destroy the world as well. It's beautiful. Two different parallels to the stuff with the hydrogen bomb. Because if you think about hydrogen, pretty close on the element table, the periodic table of elements is what it's called, yeah, to oxygen. So those two, it's the same kind of story, It's a metaphor for war and the destruction of the atom bomb and how it ruined us and everything. It's great. I love that. And this Godzilla, it looks fantastic. This is where like using the black and white and like the shadows really come into play, because the less you see the suit, the scarier it is. And you get a sense of just like the fear that is gripping everything going on. It's perfect in almost every way. Like a literal perfect film. And it's so much fun. And I want more people to watch this original Godzilla, because I don't know if it's the best Godzilla movie, but my God, is it just so cool to see that this is where it starts, with this fear of humanity destroying itself and being its own demise in more ways than one. And on top of that, you have Ugata and Amiko who love each other, and it's beautiful in that capacity. And I just love a good Godzilla. I love Godzilla. I'm going to do weekly reviews for Monarch Legacy of Monsters. The first video where I talk about the episodes coming out from Apple will be out before this one. But guys, I love Godzilla. And thank you all for watching this episode of Galactic Tales. Buy the shirt now. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.